Good morning, boys and girls of the internet. Today is Sunday, July 22nd, 2018, vlog number 202. And let's continue on talking about old school video games. I think we dealt enough about the 32-bit era. Once again, never had an N64. The only thing I could really, even though it calls it 64, I never really considered a 64-bit system. Oh well. It was still in the 32-bit era, so whatever. The only games that I ever played for the N64, again, I never owned one, were wrestling games. And it was only because we had wrestling night every other week with a couple of my friends. We would get like, WrestleMania 2000 or WWF No Mercy. We would just have fun with those games. Those games were freaking amazing. Customize the characters. We'd had so much fun. Other than that, I wasn't a fan of N64. I thought Mario 64 was a piece of shit game. I never liked that game. When I tried playing it, I'm like, this game is crap. So I don't care what you say nowadays. You try to go back and play it, it's even more crappy than it was. That's just how I am. At any rate, moving along. The DreamCast. I love my DreamCast. I imported my DreamCast, by the way. I couldn't wait for the American version to come out. In America, it came out $9/9/99. Can never forget that because I used that date specifically. But in Japan, it came out like in March of that year of '99. Odd time to release the console, but it was still good nonetheless. So I imported it. I went to one of my local game shops that I used to go to all the time, Replay Games. Shout out to old school Replay Games there. They had a lot of imports that they got. It was back before there's really like good like online sources, because we didn't have online import places back then. It was, you couldn't just Amazon something or go to what the hell's that? There's a site on right now that I can't remember the name of it, but you can import all kinds of cool stuff nowadays. But anyways, Replay, they were saying, yeah, we're importing Dreamcasts. If you want one, pre-order it here, and we'll get you the import one. So I did. And not only that, but they also modified it for you too. And back then, modifying Dreamcast was freaking amazing. Now, the modifications for Dreamcast came a little bit later, so I'm getting ahead of myself. Because they did find out how you can burn Dreamcast games too back then. Now, which was a little bit difficult because Dreamcast games weren't just regular CDs. Yeah, they use the same like CD format, but they actually like compress the disc a little bit more, and instead of having like 750 some odd megabytes that usually a CD has, they can get a gigabyte onto a disc. So they call them GD-ROMs. So some games it was kind of difficult to compress down to a regular CD if you want to burn it. I mean, getting a GD-ROM, that was Sega's way of kind of trying to combat piracy, I think it was, but didn't work, obviously. Enough about that. Boy, did I love my Dreamcast. I loved it so much. I had on my keychain, my brother, just like that year, him and my dad went to New York just for a trip, and he found a keychain that was a little mini Dreamcast. It was pretty funny, and I kept that keychain on, my keys for years. And we all know the history of Dreamcast. It didn't last long in America, which also meant it didn't last long in Japan, and they had to discontinue it. It was only maybe its height, maybe 3-4 years at most. Once the PS2 came out, year and a half later, people just kind of like shifted to that, and it was a slow death for Dreamcast, but they finally killed it a couple years later. Now, with my little keychain though, I noticed something that's pretty interesting. You know, yeah, a keychain being in your pocket, it's a little piece of plastic, but it was still perfectly white, the little Dreamcast logo on it. But when it's in your pocket, it kind of wears down after time. So I noticed it was getting, you know, a little bit dingy, a little worn. A lot of the white paint was kind of getting worn off, just being in my pocket, just kind of being handled. But for the whole time that the Dreamcast was out, the little orange Dreamcast swirl in the keychain never faded. But around the time when they announced the discontinuation of the Dreamcast, that Sega's pulling out of the hardware market for good, and they're going strictly software, which, by the way, something Nintendo should do. Don't lie to me, Nintendo will make all kinds of fucking money if they went to software. But around the time they announced the Dreamcast was being discontinued, I just happened to one day look at my keychain, and the little orange logo was starting to fade. Finally started to fade. I don't know if it faded, like, it started to fade, you know, a month beforehand, I don't know, but it was right around the same time, and it's pretty, I noted to myself, I was like, damn, is that some magical ass shit or what? I don't know, it's kind of funny. Okay, enough with the reminiscing of that sad story. I still have my Dreamcast, I still love it, and I love the games for it. So what games do I like for Dreamcast? Number one, of course, when you imported it, the number one game to get for it was Soul Calibur. That game blew me away. Like, the visuals of it, the fluidity of the animation, you know, the resolution of it, just everything seems so crisp and so amazing. I'm like, you know, me and my friends, we keep making jokes over the years. It's like, oh man, graphics can never get better than this. Of course, graphics can get better. You know, they can always get better. But back then, I truly felt that. You know, it really felt, you know, you looked at Soul Calibur, like, wow, graphics aren't going to get better than this. Of course they did. But then, that's when I got really good at Soul Calibur. I mean, I can play like almost anybody in that game. Me and my friends used to play it a lot on Dreamcast, and we used to kick each other's asses, and, you know, just have like really close fights. And it was just really, really cool. Of course, my character choice was Ivy. I mean, she's fucking hot, don't get me wrong. Yeah, I got super good with her, like her freaking whip moves. Man, I freaking love that shit. Fighting games aren't like how they used to be. I just don't have the patience for fighting games anymore. I will get the new Soul Calibur. Don't know how much I'm going to play it, but I will get it. Also for Dreamcast. I mean, like, when I first got the system, I got it with Soul Calibur, and I got it with Sonic Adventure. And Sonic Adventure was freaking badass for the time. I mean, it didn't age as well, but I loved it. Some would say, like, oh, it's still inferior to Mario 64. Okay, maybe. But I was always, being a Sega fan, I was a Sonic fan as well. Saturn had shitty Sonic games. They didn't have Sonic games for shit. I don't know what the hell happened there. But the Dreamcast, Sonic Adventure, the first one, that game was awesome. I wasn't too crazy about Sonic Adventure 2. They went a little bit too weird with that one. But I love the cutscenes in Sonic Adventure. The level design was really cool and it really made me feel fast. When you weren't like falling through the levels, you know, because you're going too damn fast and the game glitched on you. Now, another landmark title for Dreamcast that I don't think anybody would disagree with. That was, it blew everybody's minds, especially when the cutscenes came out for it, was Resident Evil Code Veronica. All the Resident Evil games were really good up to that point, but this one, was a little bit departure from the other Resident Evil games. It still played the same as the other ones, but the visuals were such a step beyond what you saw on PlayStation, of course. But then the cutscenes for that was one of the first times where I really felt that we were getting into an era where even the cutscenes in video games can be near photorealistic. And I remember at the time, that's when I first started going to school for computer animation. Like I said before, Final Fantasy VII inspired me to pursue that. So I did. I was going to school for computer animation. I was in my first few animation classes. And I remember one of my animation teachers, he was an awesome guy. He was so cool to talk to and so informative. He can teach you anything. And I wonder what that guy's doing now. I miss that guy. Brett, what was his last name? Brett Hayworth, was it? I remember his first name was Brett. I have to look him up to see if he's still doing stuff. That would be awesome. But I remember when I first showed him, I was in the class, we were after hours, and the trailer for Code Veronica came out, and I showed it to him, and he noticed something I didn't notice, that in the trailer there was a close-up of Claire Redfield's mouth, and her lips parted, and when her lips parted, the skin of the lips kind of stuck to each other a little bit, like how real people's lips do. When you speak, your lips have a little bit of moisture to them, and they stick a little bit when you part them slowly. And he knows that. I didn't, and he's like, wow. Apparently he probably never noticed that before in any, rendered, computer graphics before, pre-rendered CGI, movies or whatever. Because remember back then, the best CGI you can ever hope for was Pixar movies. Toy Story 1, Bug's Life, things like that. But not much else better than that. Nothing to the realism of that. And of course, nowadays we have much more realistic looking computer graphics than that. But those games are so awesome. I mean, just even the story of Code Veronica was just awesome. Yeah, help me. Voice acting still wasn't all that up to par. What else was good? Now, call me a weirdo, but I kind of also liked Space Channel 5. It was a weird, stupid rhythm game, but I liked it. I enjoyed it. Character Ulala, she was cute as hell. In fact, I wouldn't mind if a local cosplayer, if she cosplayed Ulala. That'd be awesome. What else we could? I know there's a bunch of cool Dreamcast games. Remember also, Dreamcast was one of the first major consoles that you could get a modem for. I mean, it had a built-in 56K modem, which just sucked. But you could also get a broadband modem for it. Now, I didn't have broadband at the time, so I just was stuck in with the 56K modem. And I did actually play some games online with a few people. They had one game called Choo Choo Rocket. It was kind of almost like a puzzle game, but it had mice that you had to get around, from one area to the next. But it was competitive kind of. So you played online with people with that. That game was kind of fun. What else? I know there's a lot of goofy games for that. One of them was Blue Stinger. God, the game was shit. The game was terrible. Dreamcast did have good games, but it had some terrible games too. Blue Singer was one of them. The freaking, we still laugh today about like the, some of the acting in that game. I had so many awesome. One other, of course, that's another good thing about the Dreamcast. The Dreamcast again was traditionally like another arcade platform that Sega built off of. So any cool arcade game that was out at the time was easily ported to Dreamcast. One of them was Crazy Taxi. Freaking love Crazy Taxi. And I got really good at that game too. That game, like, you really had to know how to do the little like turbo boost. Gotta reverse and drive it real quick. Do your power slides through turns to earn extra money and stuff. That shit was just too fun. I don't want to play Crazy Taxi again. But you gotta love the soundtrack. Who did the soundtrack to that game? I forget, but they had like 2 songs. But you loved every minute. It perfectly conveyed the game, just how you would, kind of want it. It was exactly what you would want from the game. I know I'm forgetting about a bunch of games. I only mentioned a few games for Dreamcast, but I know there was a ton. It's killing me that I can't remember them now. Of course, you had fighting games like Marvel vs. Capcom 2, which was also awesome. The freaking backgrounds in that game were amazing because, like, there was still a sprite-based fighting game, all the backgrounds were 3D and had that perfect, that really smooth-looking Dreamcast polygonal like look. Another good one that I enjoyed, speaking of fighting games, Power Stone. Power Stone was kind of like an arena brawler, but really cool, like unique looking characters. Really like over the top moves. One character, like it was obviously inspired by Dragon Ball, not the game itself, but the character itself. Where when he did a super move, he kind of turned like Super Saiyajin and threw like a big Genki Dama at the characters. So that was pretty fun. Power Stone War. He even made an anime of Power Stone. It was kind of a bad anime, but I liked it. It was just fun. That's another game that, it wasn't all that well known, so you didn't really see people like cosplaying from that. I'd love to see some nostalgic cosplayers, cosplay from Power Stone. I'll have to Google that, see if there's any, pictures of Power Stone cosplayers. Now I'm wrecking my brain. I know there was other cool Dreamcast games that I liked. One thing I will mention that was cool about the Dreamcast was totally different from other systems that ever tried this. Sony, they tried to rip it off, but Sega was there first with it, was their memory cards. They weren't just memory cards, they were VMU, virtual memory units. And they literally were tiny little consoles in a memory card form. Had a little LCD screen, had a little D-pad with a button on it, and you could download from certain games, little mini games inside of it, and you got to play with the games. Some of the games were kind of crude, but one of them, with Sega, with Sonic Adventure, you could download your little Chao, KO, character, and raise it. It was like a little Tamagotchi. It was pretty funny. Like, the KO pooped. You had to clean up the poop. It was pretty funny. I cannot finish up talking about Dreamcast without talking about my absolute favorite game from the Dreamcast era. I'm so excited because they're finally making another one, and they're re-releasing the old ones. Shenmue 1 and 2, mind you, both for Dreamcast. They made them later on for Xbox after the Dreamcast was dead, but Shenmue 1, that game was so good. You know, you'd never seen anything like it back then. You know, the story was intriguing. I loved the world. You know, there was like an old school, you know, little small village in Japan. In the second game, you got to go to a little village in China. It didn't feel like you were like in like a big city. You know, like some games would, you know, would want to go for a big city look, but no, not this game. It would go for, you know, a little village type of feel, and you really felt like there, you know, people were living their lives there, and just so, I don't know, it's so epic. So much so that to this day, I use the main character's name, Ryo Hazuki, as my usernames on a lot of platforms. Even, you know, my PS4, I'm Ryo Hazuki 224. A couple of my emails I use it for, you know, for my usernames. But ever since then, that, you know, I've used that name many, many times. I love Shenmue. And Shenmue 2. So let me talk about Shenmue 2 for a second. Shenmue 2, since the Dreamcast was kind of going out, Sega of America, in all their infinite wisdom, did not want to bring that game to America. They didn't want to put in the time and effort of bringing it here, even though they spent the time and effort of bringing it to Europe, to the UK market. So, what did EB Games back then did? They had a special, like, we will allow pre-orders for Shenmue 2, only the UK version, but we'll only get copies for those who pre-order it. So my EB Games nearby, the only one that actually was accepting pre-orders for it, they were getting 2 copies, and I got one of them. One other guy in the city got one, and that was it. And what was awesome, you know, even though it was technically an import, it was imported from UK, and UK, all they did a quick and dirty port where it was the Japanese game, but all they did is they added subtitles to it. So they did translate it, but they gave you, they didn't do any dubbing work to it, which was good because, you know, then you got to experience the game in Japanese the way it was intended. So that really, I really enjoyed the hell out of that. Love that game, played the shit out of it, beat it, and been waiting for a part 3 ever since. Now, sadly, I don't know where my copy is. I've had it for a long time, and I believe I lent it to somebody a long time ago, but I don't know who, I don't know where it went. So, for all intents and purposes, it's gone for good, which makes me very sad because I love that game. So, oh well, they're going to be re-releasing them on modern consoles, both Shenmue 1 and 2, for those who haven't played it, before the third game comes out, because they are making a third. Finally, it was kickstarted. The original creator, Yu Suzuki, he's in charge of it, and they're making it. It's going to be awesome. It's going to be a modern Shenmue game on modern systems, and I can die a happy man once that game is out. I know that's pretty dramatic, but I'm really going to love it. So, there were some awesome games for Dreamcast. You know, Soul Calibur, Sonic Adventure, Shenmue, Resident Evil, Virtua Fighter. They made a good Virtua Fighter port for it too. Crazy Taxi. There's a lot of cool games. So I love my Dreamcast. It's still sent under my TV today. Sadly, it's been many years since I played it. One of these days I should just pop it on and just have some fun with it, just to kind of reminisce. Good times, good times. Sega fan through and through. Sadly, Sega, they still make really good games today, but they're not the recognized name brand as they used to be. But it is what it is. I still love Sega. So that's it. That's all I'm going to talk about for today. I will talk to y'all later. Everybody have a good day, and I love you.